that Satya Yuga is part of a very widespread tradition of a so-called Golden Age. And you find it in so many different cultures, not only in Eurasia, but also in the pre-Columbian Americas. And in the case of Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, the age of plenitude or accomplishment, you have very similar references to it. The ancient Latins, before they were called Romans, and before they were called Latins, Etruscans, were referring to the age of Saturn, which in fact is Sat Uranus and Satya. You recognize the same root. And it is supposed to have ended when Saturn was driven underground by the rebellion of his three sons, especially of the younger of the three, Jupiter. Now, this was somehow melded with the Greek mythology, which had a similar tradition of Zeus fighting his father and essentially taking over the throne. Now, this tells you that the tradition of Satya Yuga expands much, much beyond India. And you find very similar characteristics in the descriptions that are given of it. It's always seen as the age of innocence, of purity, of truth, where people didn't need to work, didn't need to wage war, and did not need to essentially grow food or hunt, because everything was provided plentifully by nature, and they live in a state of perfect communion with nature. As we all know, in the Vedic symbology, the Dharma bull had its four legs, therefore it didn't need any support. It was in its integrity. And furthermore, we find that in the so-called apocalyptic and messianic traditions which surface in the Middle East right from about 3-4 centuries before the beginning of the Christian era, and which is incarnated in certain traditions like the Essenes, and there are a few others, then you find that there is always a return to this golden age, which is seen as due to begin again, and which therefore reminds us that many ancient civilizations shared the tradition of yugas, of successive eras. That, of course, was replaced by Christianity, which adopted a linear vision of history, saying that on the footsteps of Judaism, there was a beginning and there would be an end, and the end would be some sort of final accomplishment. And it didn't really look beyond that, you know. So the question is, when was the beginning and when was the end? And the Jewish, you might say, it's not by any means early Judaism. In fact, Judaism, as we know it, is a fairly late religion. But it finally came to a date, which you find in certain scriptures connected to the Talmud. It dated the creation of the world to 4004, more or less. There are some diverse dates, but 4004 before what the Christians called year 1 AD. So, by the way, there is no year 0 in Christianity. It starts with 1. You know, as they say, it's like a child who is born at 1 year of age. But the fact is that 4004 BCE is seen as a fairly common Judeo-Christian date for the beginning of the world, the 7 days, or rather the 6 days that created the world. By the way, the 6 days are somewhat reminiscent of the original 6 Rishi Kulas, which became 7. So you can see that there is certainly a commonality in so many different things. And Jesus, the historic Jesus, insofar as we know of him, it was very much a prophet and an apostle of the coming of the Golden Age. In fact, the whole of Christianity was intended to welcome the Golden Age and prepare people for it. And it even talked about, if you look at some of the parables given by Jesus, he said that you should live like the lilies in the field, because they do not grow, they do not labor, and yet everything comes to them. So he was clearly alluding to the Golden Age and to the fact that the Golden Age would come, and those who were ready would be accepted in it, and those who weren't and who had gone against the principles, against the precepts, would be essentially going somewhere else, which was not a very good place. Jews called, they gave it various names, but the Sheol, you know, the sort of underground realms.